Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel, and today I've got a special video coming at you. We are going to be making gluten-free bread. Follow along if you want or save it for later, and we're gonna get started. We have started off with 3 cups of flour in our bowl. And we're going to add in the rest of our dry ingredients, and we're going to whisk them together. Some xanthan gum, and xanthan gum, I've mentioned it in previous videos, but xanthan gum helps to hold the gluten-free bread together. It does what gluten would usually do in regular flours. The blend that we use already has xanthan gum in it, but since we're making bread, I'm just gonna add a little bit extra, especially since I don't know exactly how much is in the gluten-free flour blend that I buy. We're just gonna add a teaspoon into our flour mixture today. The recipe does call for a tablespoon though, but those people were mixing their own flour blend, so we are just going to add a teaspoon today of xanthan gum. You can find this at any grocery store. It's not anything fancy. You just have never realized it in your baking aisle before. We're gonna add a teaspoon of this, just like so. I don't know, it doesn't really smell like anything. Share with you this pun. Have a green day. Okay, so we added our xanthan gum. Now we're gonna add in a teaspoon of baking powder. If you keep the lid attached to your baking powder and only fold it in halfway, you can use it as a means to scrape off the excess when you're measuring out your baking powder. Here's our teaspoon of baking powder. And then we're gonna add in a teaspoon of salt. And that will complete our dry ingredients. Now I'm just going to take a whisk, and we're just going to whisk these together. Remember to whisk fairly slowly because it is pretty powdery. These are nice and whisked together. We're going to set these aside, and then we're going to start on our yeast mixture. Now we are going to take our water. This is 1.5 cups of lukewarm water. You don't want it to be too hot, but you do want it to be warm enough that it will activate the yeast. And this recipe calls for 1.5 tablespoons of yeast, and I buy mine in packets just because it's easier that way. So 1.5 tablespoons is approximately 2 packets. You would want to look on your yeast specifically to see the measurements. So here together we have 4.5 teaspoons, so that's roughly about 1.5 tablespoons, give or take. So what we're going to do is we're going to set this yeast aside. We have our warm water here. We're going to add in 2 tablespoons of sugar. And this is going to also help to feed the yeast. I know it's weird, but yeast is actually alive. We're just gonna mix this together until the sugar is dissolved. And then we're going to mix in our yeast. And the sugar water is actually going to help activate it so that it will foam up and it'll be active, and so we can put it into our bread. Now we're going to open up our yeast, and we're going to put it in the bowl, and we're going to let it sit for about 5 minutes. You want the yeast to be foamed up a good amount, and that's how you know that it's active. If it doesn't foam up, then your yeast is old and you need to get active yeast. And yeast does float, so don't freak out, it's going to float. Insert it meme here. Okay, so now we're just going to mix this well. Make sure the yeast is all wet. You don't want to mess with it too much. You kind of want to just let it do its thing. Okay, now we're going to let this sit, and we'll go from there. Now, while the yeast is doing its thing, we have 3 eggs here that I have been sitting in some warm water. We've gotten them to room temperature, and we are now going to crack them into this bowl, and we're going to whisk them just a little bit. And in lieu of previous videos, we're going to set up a barrier for my eggs while I'm cracking them so that they don't fly off the counter. And our yeast is foaming up beautifully. So I messed this up earlier. I added 3 eggs instead of 3 egg whites, so it's fine. You live and you learn. So now we're going to just start that process over again. We're just going to crack our eggs and separate them. You guys, I don't even have to say it. You all know. Just a side note, I threw away some popcorn from a movie we went to yesterday, and now my entire kitchen smells like movie theater popcorn. Just have to throw that out there. Oh. I am over it, you guys. Super over it. Yeah, it's fine. And there's our third. Honestly, it wouldn't be one of my videos if there wasn't an epic failure at least once or twice, so we're right on cue, you guys, that's fine. Okay, so we're just lightly whisking our egg whites. Now we're going to add in our 2 tablespoons of olive oil, again, and our teaspoon of apple cider vinegar. It's gonna be fun editing this video. Yeah, our counter's a disaster. It's fine. Okay, so there we go. Now we're working the way we're supposed to. I'm just gonna whisk this together just to get it mixed in. So now we have all of our stuff. Our yeast mixture has risen up all the way to the top of the bowl. You can see that here. And we have our egg white mixture, our yeast mixture, and our flour mixture. And we're just going to combine them all. And then we're going to put it in our pan and we're gonna let it rise. So first we're going to pour in our yeast mixture carefully because it's pretty full. Okay, smells good already. I love the smell of yeast. It smells like bread and bakeries and everything. Okay, and then we're going to pour in our egg mixture. Now we're just going to carefully fold this together. We're just going to mix this until there's no more lumps formed. And it probably is not going to resemble the kind of dough you are used to. It's not the kind of dough that you can knead with your hands. It's going to be pretty wet. Make sure you just scrape the bottom. Get everything incorporated. Okay, and there we have our dough. It looks beautiful. It smells so good. And we're going to set this aside. Here we have our bread pan, and I'm just going to spray it with some cooking spray. And I always do this over the sink so I don't get oil all over my kitchen. Okay, and now we are going to add our dough into our pan. Looks beautiful, smells beautiful, all that. Okay, get all that off the spatula, because this is quality stuff, y'all. Okay, now, I have said this in previous videos, but gluten-free stuff does not spread out as it cooks. So you're going to actually want to form this in the way that you want it to look once you are done baking it. We're going to get a little bit of water into one of our bowls, and we're just going to dab our fingers into it, and then we're just going to smooth out the top of this. And you can get it to look how you want it to, instead of like this, where it's kind of just a lumpy weirdness. Okay, so here we have our dough. You don't want to get it too wet because you don't want to alter the integrity of the bread, if you will, but you can use it to just kind of smooth it out a little bit, get it to be even in the pan, just so that it bakes evenly. Okay, so there we have it, our beautiful bread. We're going to cover this and we're going to sit it in a warm environment for 30 minutes. In the recipe, she recommends sticking it in the microwave, not like warming it in the microwave, just open the door, set it in, close the door, because microwaves are warm from the light and from heat that just retains from people microwaving stuff. So we're going to cover it and we're just going to set it in our microwave for 30 minutes and I will be back. Side note, if you're like me and your microwave is a hot mess and there's stuff splattered all over it, it's fine, because you cover your dough with a towel, so nothing's gonna get it anyways. It's fine. So just let it rise, let it do its thing, and we'll be back. All right, so Our bread has risen. This is really difficult with one hand, but our bread has risen in the microwave, and it is all the way up to the top. You can see the difference now. And we are going to stick this in a preheated oven set to 400 degrees, and we're going to bake it for about 35 to 40 minutes. That's just gonna kind of depend on your oven. Stick it in, we'll stick a toothpick in there, make sure it's done all the way, and then I will show you when it comes out. I'm so excited. It smells so good. Bye!